the author of Fat City, Leonard Gardner, was a big influence on Dennis Johnson. Dennis Johnson actually writes the intro to his to Fat City for the New York Review books um, edition, and he describes how he basically learned to write from Leonard Gardner. And if you read Leonard Gardner, it's so obvious that Dennis Johnson learned to write from him. It's kind of incredible because you don't really recognize that your brain is capable of making this kind of subtle connection. It's like how you tell the difference between like a boy and a girl. When you really think about it, you're like, how did I know that? Just by looking. It's just a thing that your brain does that you can't really just put your finger on very easily. And it's like that. It's like I didn't know that I had such a subtle perception necessarily, just like as a reader. But you see, it's just like you're reading a fairly normal sentence, but you're like, this is a Dennis Johnson sentence being written by Leonard Gardner like years before. Yeah.
Wow. Who are some other writers that have influenced you?
I don't really know. Anyone who's influenced me has done so by stealth, I think. But probably so I would say that there are writers who I read a lot who probably seep into me maybe more than others. So if I look sometimes like I had to stop reading Nabokov for a while because it was just too exerting too much influence on my output. And if I read or listen to a lot of PG Woodhouse, that really inflects things. And I guess probably PG Woodhouse is one of the major things. Like PG Woodhouse is also a big influence on the Cloud Intern. He's got these, of course, for those who don't know, PG Woodhouse is one of the great like comic geniuses of literature. He just spewed out like I think way over 100 books, every single one of which is basically devoid of a single sentence that another human being could have written. I mean, he's almost like unexampled in the whole history of the world, but he's probably part of culture, even though people don't know it because of the character Jeeves. You say Jeeves, and you probably think of a butler, even if you've never heard of P.G. Woodhouse or the Bertie and Jeeves stories. But a lot of them are about this guy Bertie and Jeeves's butler, and a lot of the stories are also about this guy named Lord Emsworth, who's just like sitting there at Blanding's castle, just wanting to stare with fondness at his pig Empress, the silver medal winner, and read Whiffle on the Care of the Pig in his
So
living room.
what year are we talking? When was he writing? What
Um,
time period, I mean?
like I between the wars mostly,
Mm,
I think,
like 30,
um,
1930s.
or before that, yeah,
Yeah.
20s, teens
20s,
maybe.
30s. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you can obviously I'm getting pretty esoteric here. Feel free to cut out all
Oh
this
no, I
stuff.
thought this is good. This is good because all this is a factor. And I was just thinking as you
Um,
were speaking, I have a couple things. First, as you were mentioning, I had a Nabokov line pop into my head for some reason the moment you, like seconds before you said Nabokov. So I think there was like a consciousness connection there going on that I was just sort
what
of,
was it?
it, I think it's from Ada or Arter. Remembrance like Rembrandt is dark but festive.
Whoa.
That line, for some reason, for years, it's that line stuck with me because it's so true. It's like isn't that just like, isn't that it? Right? Like you think about memory, you think about, like there's like a kind of a, a gold, sort of like a gilded quality to it. But you look at it anyway, I don't have to explain it. But, um, one other thing is that there's like, that I thought of what you were saying, that is there really is a level of humor in your work in the Cloud Intern. There's some really just some really funny moments, and I appreciate that it kind of, I like that it defies genre. It's like it's not all funny, it's not all dramatic, it's not all, it has these comedy elements, these dramatic elements, these sort of sci-fi or futurist elements, and I like that all these things combine into one sort of thing that's not easy to not not easy to define exactly what it is, what the story's about too. I like that sort of that's elusive as well.
Yep. I prefer that description to ungainly hodgepodge. I like it.
Ungainly hodgepodge. Well, I mean, like it depends on the intention. Well, I mean, like it depends on what somebody wants. Like if somebody wants something that's very uh like specific in terms of genre, like watching back to David Lynch. I've been on a Lynch kick. I just finished watching the first two seasons of Twin Peaks, and I started the Return. I don't know if you've ever seen those. I mean, they're masterpieces. There's so many different things happening there. They're they're funny. There's horror. There's drama. It's art. There's like art film, but there's like all this stuff. There's poetry. It's like there's all this stuff happening in one place. And I think I'm amazed that it was ever made, that it was released on um, regular television back in the 90s when it came out.
Yeah, I look forward to watching those someday, as I look forward to watching just about every TV show someday that I've never seen. Yeah.
Well, now it seems like you have less time. You have a new, I wouldn't say newborn, but you have a child who is one and a
Yep.
half. Is that right?
Yep. 1.5. Yes.
Yeah. Has that influenced your work at all? Having a child?
So far, I can't really tell if it has. I would say almost certainly, but not in a way that I've detected yet. So it, in theory, having a kid um, introduces you to a big part of the human experience that you're otherwise foreign to, which should have an influence on, the people that you can connect with, so many of whom have kids and have this experience. Um, and I think it can't help but manifest, right? But like the more noticeable way that it affects you, at least up through these first 18 months, is that instead of being being able to do things that previously were transmuted into your art or your writing, like watching the sunset for like a full hour every night, or like, I was just thinking about how we used to like lie in the middle of the street at Birdcliff and like watch the meteor shower for like hours, just like stuff like that, that those kind of experiences that sort of created the Cloud Intern are like completely unavailable to me now. Um, and the main experience is just not having time to do what you want to do, or having a different kind of time. And probably in a way it's better because it's nice, I guess, to have this sort of alien experience, or experience that's very unlike what the rest of the world has on a daily basis. Uh, if you're an artist, to sort of bring that to people is a nice thing to be able to do. But if you're an artist and like sufficiently a weirdo in the moment by moment experience of your life, or the way you attend to your life, then having a much more commonplace experience, like being a parent, or like a commonplace but very powerful experience, uh, I think in theory should be just as good or better. But it's hard to feel like that when you're just like frantic and don't have too much time to do what had previously seemed to be the things that were useful for artistic purposes.
So the quality of your time has changed in a sense. But do you find that you're writing less, or you're writing faster, or you have less time?
Well, I would say less, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's also, I mean, uh, I also am doing this YouTube thing. I'm also like involved in a couple of startups, and I have a full-time job. So I can't pin it all on Wilder. That would be totally unfair. So, but yeah, I've lately I've been writing this, but I still manage a little bit. Sometimes it's at other people's expense that I have to do it, unfortunately. But yeah, um, it might have changed. Somebody told me uh, that they thought everything I wrote since The Birth of Wilder was very different and better. So I'll take that. I'll take that one person's point of view and assume that it's real. I like
So,
it.
so do you have a few, do you have friends that you will write, like writer friends that you show your stuff to first to kind of like a test, sort of like a test, like test readers?
Nope, not anymore. I mean, I would, I guess, if I wrote another novel, I would certainly do that. But for what I do now, which are, those little, I guess you could call them prose poems or what I call micro novels, the bubbles, I don't show them to anybody. I read it to Sky out loud, then I revise it, and then I just put it out on the Substack.
So Sky, it's you and Sky. Sky is an artist, which we should tell the audience. You guys met at Berkeley, right? Some years ago,
Yeah,
or
that's
at
right.
a residency? Was it Berkeley?
Yeah, no, it was Birdcliff. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was even before we met. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's so like Sky being an artist, does that fact like does that have having a partner that's an artist, do you think that helps your writing and how you think about your work?
That'll be one of those questions where it would be great to say yes, and here's how. But in a way, it's, I guess, nice in terms of daily existence to be with someone who has a similar orientation to the world and a similar priority and sort of view of life. But I don't think that her art impinges on what I do, and I doubt what I write gets into her art at all. But who knows? Maybe it'll intersect one day.
So how's the upstate life?
So I lived in the city for a long time, and then yeah, moved over, like roved about, lived in a church with you and Sky and others for a while
It's the best
up
summer.
in Troy.
It's the best summer
Uh,
ever. It's the summer of COVID. Yeah, we lived in that what was it called? It was residency before we rented it for the summer. It was like I can't remember
Post
the name. It
something,
post
no,
post contemporary,
that's something
was it?
else.
Something else?
I think post contemporary
Um,
is something else. Well,
it
anyway,
was
yeah,
but
it was
it, for
residency.
we it was a church in Troy that was sort of retrofitted to be a residency. And you rented it out and then you brought me up there. The space was amazing. You had a trampoline in the main space and we had it was already set up for painting and stuff. So there's little cubicle studio, like little like sectioned off studios, and I had my little studio. I slept in the it was the old library, and the bed I realized like towards the end of my time there that it was two church pews put together with a mattress on top. It was amazing. That summer I was sort of like I felt self-conscious about having such a great summer because I know there was so much suffering going on, but
Yeah,
just you could still feel it, right? The anxiety, but being out of the city
yeah.
was priceless.
Yeah, thank goodness. That was actually all attributable to Sky. Thank you, Sky, for that.
Thank you,
Because I was
Sky.
just
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm gonna hang out in my tiny little studio apartment in Bushwick, and just maybe I'll have more time to write or something. But Sky was just like on the very first day of like stores closing down or whatever, March 20 something. Uh, she was just like, we're leaving. And yeah, luckily I got hold of that church, and it turned out to just be a magical time. Um, not at other people's expense, but it certainly was
It
like
was
maybe eerie
yeah.
to be having such a good time while everyone else was hating it.
Well, I mean, we were hanging out. It was we had our pod, right? Our social bubble, where we had our we hung out, and then a couple other people came through, so we had like I feel like we had a nice group the whole time pretty much. Had that trampoline, and we had some exercise equipment around, and there was nice walks. There was a like a that CSA farm to table spot up the way we would go to. what was it called? Edible Uprising, right? That little farm up there. Anyway,
Oh yeah,
it was
I believe it. Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
great.
right. Yeah, right next to that nature preserve. Just like a giant 60-foot ceiling sanctuary with nothing but
Oh, and that rose
a huge
window.
trampoline
Yeah.
and a stereo
The
system.
balcony. Yeah, it's awesome. So
Yeah.
you guys stayed upstate after that, right? Or you
Yeah,
were
well,
moving that
we
way.
actually went to Birdcliff for one summer, like in one of the cabins for 5 months. We went to
That's
After
right.
that, we went to uh, live in the Outer Banks, like in the winter when nobody's there. That was also like, early pandemic time, and nobody's there, I think, in the winter anyway, normally. So that was like a nice, pleasant, desolate scene, just walking on the completely empty beach in the winter. I think we went to Florida. I worked remotely, so we could do this. And uh, we roved about. Yeah, we were in various places upstate, and then now Kingston, New York. Um, to answer your question, how is it? I think it's nice. I miss the city, but uh, let me complain. I'm not here to bring cheer and strew sunlight all over the place. It's pleasant, but like, this sort of gets back to residencies and just the value of that. It's hard to move as a grown up and have friends and have a life. Um, the world's really designed for that. And like, this is a place where people I know have been, seeping into over the years. Like a lot of people do move to Kingston, and I actually do kind of know a lot of people, a lot of like literary people from the city have moved up here, and it's nice. And like, I see them at parties, and thankfully people still invite me to parties every now and then, and the people in the neighborhood and so on. But it's like, a lot of friendship is just a matter of habit, especially as you get older. You just get more and more habitual. And like, uh, I'm not like I see people on the street, I see people in, parties at openings, whatever, and it's like, oh, we all like each other. We would be friends if we weren't grown-ups and and stuck in our routines. And like, so I'm on any given like Friday night, my phone is utterly silent. That's just like it's just a little hard, I would say, to move and go somewhere as a grown up. So uh, stay where you are, people. Go to residencies. Stay in your little studio.
Well, yeah, it does seem like there is like a burgeoning artist community upstate, and especially in the Kingston area. I hear about a lot of people moving there. I mean, I think if you're comparing it to some place like Brooklyn, that's a pretty tough. You're not going to have the same sort of amount of people, the same creative energy, and the same amenities and events and things going on, and all that stuff. Which I think. But in terms of being out of the city, it seems like a good place to land.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, don't take me seriously. I encourage all of you people to move up to Kingston. Come keep me company. Do it. It's yeah. As far as it goes, this is like becoming a kind of borough of the
Yeah.
city, for better and for worse. But for me, that's mostly for better.
If you don't mind reading just a segment from the Cloud Intern.
Sure. Okay, so this is toward the beginning, right after the narrator has been snooping on his new Cloud Intern, Zoraida's private journal. As she's writing to herself, he's watching because he has access. And he's just like lying in bed, having done this creepy thing. And he says this. What hidden charms a person could find in a fellow person with only a little snooping. I put down the eddy and returned to the stars. I was now almost eager for sunrise with this Zoraida who had such feeling for the sky, and the yacht itself, a diarist even, possessed of surprising inner life, though maybe any inner life is surprising in the rare event you find some evidence of it. I should probably try this humanizing app if I could figure out how, on all my fellow passengers, who were indeed hard to picture scribbling through the night to their mortal souls. or this intern was really different. She was evidently not of the intern class, and this too connected us. I'm sure I'd have felt just as lost here at 20 among all these well-heeled strivers, soothing myself with favorite lines called up verbatim without any trouble. For a moment, I returned there to that hopeful and magnifying age, my own self-turned thoughts a madding seesaw of congratulation and reproach, the innocent energy of all that life stretching away, the inane, inescapable hope of it. But it was just the instant. And then the young co-founding Chris Curtis, the savior Christ Curtis, dredged up by this improbable glimpse inside another, sank back, tugging with him, however, a suddenly aged heart. Yes, something had stirred. I got myself to bed with a blessed minimum of procrastination and lay in my own darkness, feeling almost agreeable in those moments before sleep, which always seem somehow to concentrate the lonesomeness of life. I didn't even need an audiobook.
Love that. Thank you. So that it really, I feel like there's like an element of a real, like a real reflective quality in this character. You know, he's very self-aware.
Yeah, he's like most people, he's a combination of self-aware and self-deluded, of course.
So I want to just circle back um to the you mentioned that we both have a sort of shared interest in um these sort of body hacks. So what are some things? What are some things that you have recently learned that you've sort of incorporated into your health routine?
I was staggered to recently learn after an entire life of obsessively brushing my teeth and worrying about oral hygiene that you're actually not supposed to rinse your mouth after brushing. Uh, I mean, it just seems disgusting to leave the toothpaste in your mouth, but you're supposed to spit apparently and otherwise just leave it. Don't wash it off. Like I've heard some fancy dentist, like biodentist, whatever, recently characterized that as like, putting on a bunch of sunblock and then taking a shower. Like
Hmm.
it's better if you let the material of the toothpaste exert the effect on your teeth like overnight or whatever. So stop rinsing. I mean, assuming you're using the right kind of toothpaste, I guess some chemicals probably, can just be transient, but
Well,
the
or if you're
real
using
stuff.
fluoride, that's a whole discussion that I think is kind of a hot issue right now, like whether to use fluoride or not. You know, and I stopped for the past year or so, and I haven't had any problems. But it's probably in the water anyway.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Let's
um,
be controversial and get some ratings here.
well,
I
well,
stopped I stopped using fluoride like years ago, and
yeah, I
it
think that's
doesn't make
wise.
it doesn't make any
It makes
difference.
no
Like
difference. Yeah.
I mean, apparently fluoride can, have some effects that you don't want. So as long as your teeth are in good shape, it's probably for the best not to have the fluoride. But
I agree with that. I agree
if
with that.
you're if you are doing the fluoride, probably rinsing your mouth is a good idea.
Well, I still get, so I went to the dentist the other day and I still get they give you the travel pack or whatever it is. And like I'm like, I can't use any of these objects. I'm not gonna use mouthwash with alcohol. I'm not using fluoride toothpaste. And
Yeah,
you
not to
know,
mention the dental floss that's like climbing rope.
yeah, I
Or
know,
I don't know,
I
are my
know.
teeth like
Yeah.
way
No,
closer
that's what I
together
was
than
just gonna
other
say.
people's,
Like
or
I can't use
can
that.
people really
I don't
use
think
that
so.
stuff?
I don't know.
All
It's like,
right.
yeah. Yeah, I thought the same thing. Like I gotta use the glide. You know, I gotta use the thin stuff. Like what
Well, here, let me give you another little tip. That glide has an enormous amount of
plastic?
microplastic. Yeah,
Oh,
compared with other
oh
stuff.
man.
Like there's some, I don't, in my great nerdiness, I
Oh,
subscribe to this thing called Consumer Labs, which is like, I don't know, you pay a certain amount for the year and they test all these different kinds of products and supplements and, powders and so on. And yeah, the Glide is like
really?
one of the worst. It's like orders of magnitude worse than
Really?
just like some, plain stuff.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta find an alternative. I just bought a reverse osmosis filter to get the micro. You and I talked earlier about Rhonda Patrick and microplastics and all this stuff and how it's sort of becoming pretty clear that it's in every product basically that I mean, look in your fridge, it's all plastic, right? But if you can minimize like stuff like that, like what you're consuming, what like I think the main takeaway I got from listening to her conversation on Rich Roll was not to consume liquids out of plastic for the most part, especially liquids that might be acidic or heating up plastic, things like that. Um, I
Yeah,
know it's
don't
an
eat plastic, man. Goodness knows what I might be today if I hadn't spent like my 20s microwaving burritos in the wrapper and stuff. Oh man.
I know. I'm thinking about my childhood and just like, oh man, the amount of plastic I must have consumed, and I'm like, so I'm like, if you're like 10, I'm like, between 10 and whatever 15, 16 years old in the 90s when I think this nobody knew anything about that kind of stuff. There was no talk about that at all. And I think plastics were just in our generation becoming more widely used. So we don't really know the effects over time.
Yeah, I mean, probably a fellow like yourself is fine, but apparently there really is very sound evidence that at least in mice or rats, if the if the mom during pregnancy has a level of plastics, it really has an effect on the offspring
Mm.
and an even greater effect on the offspring's offspring. So, you not being a pregnant woman is probably already something to relish as far as your concern about plastic goes.
Yeah.
Um, and that's probably the huge concern. I don't think it's known what effect it has on like a person like a person who's not carrying a baby or planning to, but it's probably not great.
I keep thinking that we're living in this like Cronenbergian world already. Like I didn't see the movie Crimes of the Future, but it's about people that eat. My roommate was telling me it's about people that eat plastic, and like in the in the future we've
It's a
like
crime. It's a
evolved.
crime.
Crimes of the
Okay.
Future, yeah, yeah, and it's like
Uh,
I'm like I can't bear to watch something like that. I would just I already think about it way too much. But apparently humans at this stage have evolved to eat plastic, and I feel like we're kind of living in this like Cronenbergian world already, in which things are, and in a lot of ways we're living in this sort of like I mean, the future is here in a lot of ways. Like people like talk about the future as some distant, oh, the future it's going to be like this, AI is going to be doing this, but we're kind of in it. We're consuming a lot of plastic. AI is influencing a lot of the way that we behave already, and uh I think it's a part of it though. I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad or good, definitely probably not a good thing, but I'm not saying it's completely bad either, because plastic um has been one of the things that's allowed us to have a certain quality of life. It's what our food comes in. It's how we have been able to support being in the world, having more children. Cheap things are cheaper, so you can afford to have more kids because of plastic. So a lot of the technologies that we've used before that are not working anymore did serve a purpose at one point.
Plastic, I mean, look, I have plastic in my ear right now. You have plastic on your
Yeah,
ears right now.
yeah.
It's great.
In our clothes, it's in our
I don't know
clothes.
if I'd
Yeah,
want to live without plastic. I mean,
I know.
whatever detriment it's having on me is probably greatly outweighed by the benefit of it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, whether that can be said for the whole world, the oceans, et cetera, is, obviously is one of these things that's of great momentary advantage to the human being and probably a great disadvantage to future human beings and to almost every other creature and plant.
That is true. But I think there is that we I think you can simultaneously be critical and grateful of something at the same time. The futurist Kevin Kelly, who's one of the founders of Wired magazine,
Mhm.
is very optimistic about this kind of thing. And he was talking about, gasoline and petroleum products and fossil fuels being obviously not, like not the path that we need to go down now, but that at one point really allowed us to have a certain cult, basically allowed civilization to exist. And so there was a problem. The problem back then was having the resources and the ability to have more humans. So that the solution to that was fossil fuels. And now there's the problem fossil fuels is creating these huge problems. So we don't know the solutions yet, but it's like people are working on these we're thinking about these problems, we're talking about these problems, we're working on them. I'm not saying to put it aside and not think about it and whatever, it's fine, everything's great. But I think there's there are solutions, and we're I mean these are massive problems. I know that, but there's like so many ways to look at one thing, right? It's not just the
Yeah,
one
certainly,
thing.
certainly. Yeah. Well, let's figure it out right now.
That's what we're doing. We're working on it. Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's what artists, I think that's important. Your writers and artists, people that are we're sort of crafting these worlds that are deeply connected to the one we're in, and they shape the world we're in. And like it's you think about neighborhoods that get gentrified, the artists go there for the artists go there first or whatever it is. They, like, but I think in the culture as well, like I think there's an important role that the artist plays that's sort of not necessarily very obvious or maybe you can't articulate it.
Yeah, it's like what I was just reading, the rare event that you see some evidence of inner life. Um, just that, if you need an excuse to do art, um, I mean, just showing that there's something in there that other people that you see yourself from inside, of course, and the way you experience yourself is so much deeper and more like disturbing and disconcerting and profound than the way people appear on the outside, where if you're walking in your neighborhood, if you're riding on the subway, you just like it's people are so uniform in their behavior and so boring in general. And if they're not, if they're being really eccentric, that's like you don't want to see that either. That's like just that's worrisome. If somebody's behaving in like an erratic way that's not predictable, like that's scary. You don't like it. Um, and like art is the way that you can see that someone else, uh, that all of these people who just seem like these sort of zombies that you, the only living soul, are surrounded by, uh, are actually like you and have like this thing that connects them to you and so on. I mean, am I just like uh, giving solid evidence that I'm a sociopath right now?
No,
Or
we're
is
all
this
we're
like,
all
is this a common experience? Um,
yeah, we're all
you know,
trapped in
may-
our own experience, aren't we? We're
yeah,
really
and certainly, but if if you take it upon yourself to, extrude some of that into the outside world, as artists do, and as I think even like, more or less people seem to do that more and more now because it's just the means by which to do that is more accessible. I would say that most people are still not like using the means to really do it, but if you take it upon yourself to do that, you make the world a more human place, and you make it harder for people to hate the other person and to, have a total disregard for the people who are not near you or not like you or not living the same time as you, etc.
it's a great point. It's really about connection, and I think it art it is connection, it's about communicating your inner experience, whatever medium that form sort of ends up becoming is really about reaching out to the other person, communicating and connecting in a way that's not possible otherwise. You have to, it has to take some sort of like the expression has to be something that's understandable, but also maybe slightly abstract.
Yeah, just like the painting behind your head right now. Um, uh, that's not that's not something that I can get from you. Just, I mean, maybe I can sort of start to get like a kind of the same image or experience of you from like knowing you for years and like talking to you for hours and hours. But that that painting is just like it's just transmission from somewhere, whatever, some like neural subsystem in your brain to one in mine um, that I couldn't get just from even like a pretty long conversation with you. And it's like something that touches an inner weirdness and makes a person feel more connected to other people and the human race.
Well put. And I think it's a consciousness thing too. Like the painting itself is inherent. I keep using this quote. I mean, people are going to be annoyed if I keep quoting this Agnes Martin saying that a painting is only, it's the art happens between the viewer and the painting. It's not the painting. I'm probably, I'm not quoting that verbatim, but that's the idea, right? So like that painting behind me needs your consciousness to activate it, and it really, uh, it's the question is, would you make art if you were the last person on the planet? I
For
think
me, I can tell you no.
no.
Uh,
Yeah.
I mean,
Y-
I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't bother. No.
Why would you?
Would you? Yeah,
No,
exactly.
no, I would. I mean, no, no, I don't even know what I would, but like, it, it's because it's really about connection. It's activated by another consciousness, and then I think maybe all of our lives too, if you consider your life as the artwork, which I think there's a case to be said for that too, of how you live your life in a creative way. It could be that's like the piece, right? And everything goes into it. So I guess the more I realize that, the less stressed out or the less worried I am about making an interesting one object, because it's like that one feeds into the other thing. And then also what I'm doing feeds into that, I go to the gym or going about my day or just how in my 30s, I was kind of not, or my early 30s, I should say, late 20s, especially in grad school, I was like, a little more aggressively pursuing uh the practice of making art, and it was so important. And I recall this recent interview with Richard Linklater, and he was talking about how when he was in his 20s, if his best friend fell out of the boat and he could save the negatives, the film negatives fell out also, he would save the negatives back then. And that was like the way I
Uh,
thought about it too. It's like, oh well, I don't care about anybody. I'm just gonna make that's missing the point. Now I'm just like, well, what? That's ridiculous. Who cares about the silly art? It's like how you treat your friends and family, how you treat the cash register at the store. It's like all of that. It has to be all connect. It's all connected.
like to quote yourself, um, I don't think quoting anybody else from a previous episode, the art makes you as you make the art.
Yes.
I
Yes, it
love that.
does. It doesn't it? It's amazing what a privilege to be able to do that, to be able to make art. I mean, to live at all, to be alive is an incredible gift. But to be an artist on top of that, that's that's just I'll be in my studio and I'm just amazed that you have the freedom and the not just the time freedom, the monetary freedom. You can afford a space to work, and you can afford some supplies, and you've had an incredible amount of education and experience going into this thing. So really, we sort of take it for granted, and especially in New York, you're kind of in a bubble because all your friends are artists, and they also have an extremely high degree of they've seen everything. They've seen your work, they've seen all the historical stuff you've seen. They have an incredible knowledge and experience of art that makes you sort of, I don't want to say not as appreciate, you kind of take it for granted, but it is really a special thing. My aunt who doesn't have any art background came to New York for the first time, and I think she was once back in high school. She's in her 70s now. So basically she's seeing things for the first time. And we saw my mom and my aunt came together, and we went to the Met, we went to the MoMA, but we were going around the Met and seeing these masterpiece everywhere you look. It's another thing you've seen in history books or you've seen in the culture, just in popular culture. There's Starry Night by Van Gogh over there, and then you're going to see the famous Picasso painting of whatever it is, and then in the Met, all these just masterful. And I'm seeing it. It was so refreshing seeing this work with somebody who had no art background and had never seen this work before, because I saw it like through their eyes in a fresh way. So they kept thanking me for hosting and taking him around, but I was like, no, thank you for letting me see this stuff in a new light.
Yeah, that's I guess probably one of the great things about having a kid as well, is
Yeah,
that that's just like automatic. It's like your aunt from the middle of nowhere, like for years and years, and it's she keeps being from the middle of nowhere. Um, so yeah, that's probably also quite good as an artist if you don't already have that, weird capacity to just like see things innocently. Um,
that's hard. Because you get really stuck in your I want to say like the default mode network is sort of at play there, right? Like the system in your brain that just makes things seem normal after a time.
Yeah, I mean, I see that, and like I'm a person who I think has very low function in that area, but which would sound like a blessing, but it because like I will look out the front window on the subway car for like the entire train ride, like every time. If I'm in the front car, I look out, the window as it, even the side windows, and it goes as it like, especially as the subway comes out over the Manhattan Bridge, and you've got all of Manhattan there and all that, and you just like, but I'm just like, instead of feeling what a blessing, I'm this dude who's like sensitive to, the delights of the world. It immediately curdles into contempt for all the people who aren't doing it, which is everybody. And they're in my way. They're standing there, like looking at their phones like bouncers, like looking into me. I'm just like, man, step aside, dude. Let one person look at freaking Manhattan. It's right there. Like, it's like an alien colony, like just magnificent. Like, nothing like it possibly in the whole universe. Uh, can I just like get like an inch of window? Anyway, or like on the flights, man, I've just like been seething with contempt my entire life, just like looking at the tops of the clouds and just these fabulous spires, sunlit from above that you just never can see under any other circumstances, or like the sunset from the plane, like as mentioned earlier, and you just look and you're just like, are we all seeing this? Oh my God. And you just look, and there's not one person looking ever. Even kids don't look anyway. So it's
But I
like a
wonder,
blessing, but I turn it into a curse with my contempt for humanity.
but I wonder if that's not part of your sort of, I guess, not, I don't know if this is the right word, but mission in terms of your work is to sort of like describe these sunsets and scenes with a sense of wonderment that might make people more interested. So if they read some of your work, maybe the next time they're out there, they'll have a look and get a sense of that or explore a little
Yes.
more.
Yes, that is certainly the dream. That
Yeah.
would be wonderful. If I want to offer like the Cloud Intern to just be in when you fly now, there's a pocket in the seat in front of you that very amusingly says literature only. And it has like the safety card and like their like food catalog or whatever, but I want the Cloud Intern to be in there. Like if you're gonna be ignoring those damn clouds, you should at least be reading about them, and maybe you'll be compelled to look out the window every now and then. Yeah,
Well, that's the beauty of art, though, right? It's like it's showing you. That's like it's trying to sort of like show something that, or maybe encourage somebody to see something in a way they might not see before. Um,
absolutely. Yeah, that's what it's about. That's one of the things. Um, it's questionable whether that should be your conscious mission, but
well,
It's
it could
not
be a side
really my
effect.
conscious
Yeah.
mission. It's not
Yeah.
my
You don't
conscious
have to have
mission
a mission. I mean,
exactly,
even
but yeah,
having a mission is dubious, I think, having an objective, like it's art. We're not talking about,
exactly.
yeah. And
Yeah,
I think,
like just the experience, as you were saying,
yeah.
just I mean, I might it, returning to whether I'd actually make art if I were the last person alive, I might still do the bubbles because uh like eventually writing a novel turns into like an engineering project that especially as you rewrite and have like the seventh draft, you're doing these big like reconfigurations and it becomes engineering, but which I'm engineering is my day job, but writing the bubbles is just like a kind of experience of uh opening the mind to possibility in a way that I guess is not available to me in my daily life otherwise. And the experience of just sitting down, like, I mean, the way I put it to myself sometimes is like, sit down a moron, stand up a genius. And that I like the experience of just sitting down, like just being like, well, there's nothing in my brain. Now here I am, my familiar daily self, not thinking of like fabulous, otherworldly, weird stuff that's gonna make an impact on anybody. Like I can't even imagine doing that. And then you sit there and it's just like, uh, here I am. Where brain? Are you in there? Where's the great stuff? Like where's the interesting original thing? And like of course it's not there. It's not just like but then you have this experience of just like groping and like I never want to know or be inspired by anything when I sit down. I just want like that experience of groping and just like feeling the weird machinery start to turn on and becoming bigger than yourself. And then you stand up and you're like, who did that? Um, or maybe it's the next day after you've made it a little better that you stand up and say, who did that? Um, but that experience is great. And maybe that, and maybe there's probably an argument to be made that I am the last person on earth because I don't know if anybody's reading these bubbles. Maybe I am just doing it to avoid. Um, and yeah, maybe I would do that anyway. It does sort of make a better experience of life.
Well, it sounds like when you sit down for something, you just want to make yourself available to it. I guess I'm curious about the process a little bit. Like, do you clear a certain amount of time and you sit there and you're going to write, you put your phone away, or do you have any sort of like, what are some things you do that helps you in your process?
Oh man, what a dream to be able to answer a question like this. I um yeah, of course, no phone, nothing like that. I mean, if there's a lot of, noise in the house, I might have to have some countermeasures with music. So I'm just sort of removed from the daily cacophony. But uh but then I just sit there with a pen and just like gradually go from being just like a vapid, uninspired buffoon to like watching something happen. And then uh, and then with luck, it just sort of takes over and it's just like an hour or an hour and a half, maybe if I'm lucky. And that's normally enough for one of these bubbles. And then I'll go back like the next day and the next day and make it a little bit better. But it's pretty much the experience of sitting down and doing it just there.
I like that you say you sit down a moron and stand up a genius. That's really that's really good. But a lot of that is just being available to it and being sort of surrendering to the process, and sitting down and saying, I'm just gonna sit here and and having some faith that's good, something's gonna happen.
Yeah. Because
That
every time it's hard to believe. I mean, I think writers,
yeah.
I don't know if artists have this experience, but I'm pretty sure that writers, like every time they sit down, are gripped by fear that like, oh no, is today going to be the day that I reveal myself to just be a completely ordinary, talentless like bastard, and I'm just going to produce drivel and it's going to be disgrace. I think that's like the main experience that a writer feels when they sit down, and that's why. as is widely known, people just spend the time cleaning their room and cleaning off the desk and doing all these other things. It's, I mean, it's a very uncomfortable experience to have to go from being your daily self to being like the person who might actually have something interesting to say to other people.
I kind of pictured this song by Ravel, Bolero, Maurice Ravel. Do you know how it starts
Uh,
off?
I can't call it to mind. Feel free
Um,
to sing it or hum it.
I maybe I'll play a little clip of it, but it starts off very slow and meandering. It's like 20 minutes, and then by the end of it, you're just like, you're whatever you're doing. If you want to like clean your room or something, you put it on. You kind of start off. Maybe you like do a little bit of something, and then by the end of it, you're sweating and everything is you completely organized, whatever it is. But like it seems like just like gradually like falling into the process and just and letting it sort of take you where it wants to go, like process wise. I mean, for visual art, I think it's pretty similar too. There can be a kind of, I guess it depends on what phase you're in, right? And I'm sure you have different phases for your like if you're talking about like generating ideas or generate for me, if it's like a design for a painting, that's the same sort of thing where you're like, I don't know how you can't possibly imagine being in the mindset of being able to make something that's interesting or that it's, but then if you just sort of let the process do its thing, then you're whatever the outcome you've invested in the process, and that's always good.
Yeah, I guess it can be. You probably have uh, a more enlightened perspective on all this from meditating as well, right? Which sounds like very similar from what I understand of meditation anyway.
Yeah, it depends on, I mean, if it's like a retreat, like yeah, definitely in terms of like on a daily basis, like my daily like sit like I'll sit for 30 or 40 minutes in the morning, and then 10, 20, 30 minutes whatever it is in the evening. And those definitely have that effect of like being a little just like, I don't really want to do it, but I'll sit down anyway. Then by the end of it, you're good. You got into it. You've surrendered to it. But on a retreat, it's a little different. Actually, maybe it's the same thing, but on a longer time scale. Like if I'm doing a 10-day Vipassana, which I haven't done in a little while, even a 3 days, like the first couple of days, the first few days of a 10-day are like, oh man, this sucks. This is really hard. And then I find myself falling into the sort of groove of it by the end of it. So maybe it is similar in that you sort of like just just trust the process, and which is it's a lot of it is just being there, being there for it, not trying to fight it, so creatively too, it's like if you're in your studio, rather than be like, I want to be out there doing something else, it's like you don't have to be in the studio, you could be doing something else, but if you're going to be there, you might as well commit to the process.
Yeah, there's famously Jerry Seinfeld had that rule for himself where it's just like he's going to sit in this room at a desk with nothing but a pen and pad, and he doesn't have to do anything, but he can't do anything else. Like he's supposed to be sitting there writing jokes. If he writes jokes, okay, but he's going to sit there for 3 hours, one way or the other, and eventually you're Jerry Seinfeld.
You're going to do something, yeah. I mean, well, the mind wants to I guess entertain itself or proliferate, as monks might call it. I'm not sure if I'm using this in the right context, but it's really, really difficult to quote do nothing. And on a meditation retreat, you're not doing nothing. You're observing. There's a lot going on. You're just thinking pretty much the whole time. But it's amazing the places you go, when you're not active in the way that you're used to. Like we really seek entertainment. And there's something really but beneficial that happens when you deprive yourself of your usual entertainments. I think that sort of that create that it needs an outlet somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that you wind up making paintings in your head, or is that discouraged?
I always think about, yeah, yeah, you're not supposed to bring a sketchbook on these things, but I always plan, yeah, I come out of the retreat. I often come out of a retreat with a lot of ideas, and then I always have a very prolific period immediately following the retreat. I think stuff that just builds up, I always feel quite inspired afterwards because I've been sitting there and I really want to do something, and like so I think it's beneficial in that way. Also that you've built up this sort of mental capacity to follow an idea. Like it's very we're so distracted, myself included, that it's very difficult to have an idea and follow through with it, because your phone is demanding your attention, or this or that thing is going on, or whatever people get into, whatever media is it's so entertaining these days. Like I think that like some of the shows, and there's these you know incredibly creative and well written shows on whatever it is. You don't you're not too into you don't consume much media, it seems.
Yep, that is correct.
That's good.
Um, yeah, like I do consume a lot of audiobooks and podcasts because I can do those while I'm running around being a janitor and otherwise doing the daily devotions. Um, but yeah, I don't have time to watch a show or doing things that I have to just like sit down and not be doing anything else at the moment. No, I mean, well, if I didn't want to be writing and involved in all these projects and working and having a baby, or if I just shaved off a few of these things, but uh, unfortunately, I like, I guess, Joe Strummer has that like no input, no output or something like that. But I'm very close to no input at the moment. And maybe it is bad for the output, but it's like I feel like right now it's either input or output. I don't have much time for input if I want
Depends
to
on
have
what
output.
Well, it depends on what you want the output to be. I mean, there's the saying garbage in, garbage out, right? Like I think
Well,
it
sure, yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that's right, and that's like a problem, and that's part of what I want to do with my ridiculous YouTube channel. I mean, and with the bubbles and with the Cloud Intern and all that stuff. It's not like, oh, here I'm offering you something that isn't garbage, try that, but just like um, you can do something different, even if it sucks. It'll make you a different person, different from everyone else who's reading the same thing, listening to the same thing, etc. Like the YouTube channel is like it's not just for writerly or artistic people who want like a more familiar kind of person to tell them how to exercise, but like I hope it's for people who are like into exercise and they're like less exposed to arty or literature stuff uh, to get different inputs and that is important not just to just be a person who has like a bigger experience of the world or a different experience than other people have or than they might have, but like one of the things that the Cloud Intern Zoraida says in the Cloud Intern is that it's like actually important politically to be a weirdo and to not do what everyone else is doing. Like that's extremely important if you don't want to wind up turning the world into poop. Like you have to actually be a different kind of person, an individual, or you're going to just participate in whatever the channels that are insistently boring into your mind at all times, driving you to participate in, and you feel like you're doing the right thing, and you feel like the other people are doing the wrong thing, and there's a lot of machinery involved today, and optimizing those feelings of indignation and passion and so on and like uh, it's probably better to be a citizen of the world to just have a totally different or disparate kind of input so you can be the person who's not like just last night I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about some famous photo where like these legions of Nazis are doing the one arm salute at like a rally or whatever, and there's one dude who's just standing there like this with his arms folded, and that guy's like name is now known. Like it's like he was eventually put to death, of course, but it's pretty hard to be that one dude with his arms folded, and you might think that you're going to be that person, but you're not going to be that person if you're not like getting radically different inputs from what everyone else is.
Yeah, it's really hard because we all consciousness is so permeable. We all really want to go with the culture. We're really influenced. We become so I mean like hang out with people that you would like to sort of to embody some of their qualities because you're going to absorb those, right? I think we do that. We're such a social species that we can't help but become very similar to the people that we're around. So you have to be really careful with that, right? So if you want
I
to be,
believe
that's
so.
it's the nice thing about being in Brooklyn, and being an artist in New York is that your friends are artists, so they're already weirdos and they're already thinking differently and they're already, so you have a lot of really good, I think I got a lot of good positive influence to think differently or to think more creatively if you can. And you sort of take it for granted. Like I keep saying this, but you do take it for granted when you're in it and you can't really see it. But I was driving the other day and driving around the Lower East Side, and I my window was down. I could hear this person talking about a painting, just talking about art. And I sort of like just like, oh yeah, it was just normal. But you go most places, anywhere in the world, they're not going to be talking about paintings.
Yeah,
This is just some
that's
random person I didn't know talking about paintings. And that's a cool thing, right?
that is a cool thing. But of course, all of these people talking about paintings are also to an extent uniform in their
Yes.
within their own context. And
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
good
so I mean
point.
that's another
Yeah.
good thing about
Yeah.
living in Brooklyn is that of course you've got like the artists weirdos, but they're in some way very uniform too.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah.
just like the punks had a uniform. Like
Yeah,
they
you're
were
right.
different
Yeah.
from each other.
Yeah. So
And
I'm
like,
really not that we're not that unique, because we're all in
but
the same bubble together, right?
But you're on the subway and you are amongst
Yeah.
like the entire cross section of or a very big cross section
Yeah.
of the people in the world, whereas of course in a smaller place you don't get
Very
that.
true. I think it's Queens that's the most diverse place on the planet, I believe. I think Flushing might be the most diverse neighborhood in the United States or in the planet. Yeah, so like but New York itself is just an incredibly diverse place. It's true. You can go, 2 blocks one way and the whole neighborhood's completely different. Then go the other way and it's way different. It's like you do have since living in New York, I've developed an extremely high tolerance for otherness, for weirdness. For somebody who dresses like just completely wild and out there. Like at the gym, the dude that checked me in today, he just like had just the craziest hair, just like long dyed red hair with a weird ponytail. And I think he might have been wearing a skirt. And I'm just like, I didn't even think twice. I'm just thinking about it now. I didn't bat an eye. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing. It's like if we can accept people for how they want to be, how they are, or whatever culture they are, like I think, but that is one of those things where if you're exposed more, I remember being fresh in New York from the Midwest, and you definitely like if you're used to living in a very homogenous place, and you come to a place that's very diverse, you're definitely you have to change the way you think. You have to change the way you see the world and operate in the world. And it's cool. And just like it's cool. You see how my aunt was really struck by how friendly everybody is in New York. And I think the misconception is that people are rude here, but they're some of the friendliest people, and they want to help you, and they want to like, if you have trouble getting somewhere, or you want to like a recommendation for somewhere to go, they love to, people love to chat
Yeah,
here. Yeah.
that's like it is like what I was uh bloviating about with like the exposure of inner life and the appearance of its absence just by looking at people on the street because like especially if you come from like a smaller town uh it's weird to go to a big city where nobody acknowledges your existence when you walk down the street and it seems like people are mean because you're used to like here where I live now I walk down my block and it would be socially wrong of me to like not like wave or say hi to the person passing me. But if you did that in the city, of course, I mean, it's impossible. Like, and like,
Yeah.
and so coming from that, you're like, whoa, no, like nobody acknowledges my humanity. Like when I walk by them, when I'm like, next to them in the store. Uh, but it's because you're not seeing the evidence. As soon as you talk to somebody, as soon as you like, step behind the screen, there they are. They're like so eager to help, etc.
Yeah, and I think living and you have to like living in close quarters with a lot of people and a lot of different people gives you like you can't, you can't be you have to be polite. You have to because like just the whole thing, the city itself is really an incredible. Did you ever read any Kim Stanley Robinson?
No.
Sci-fi writer wrote New York 21. It's a great book, New York 2140, sort of like what New York might be like in the year 2140, and everything's like you have to take a boat everywhere because it's all
Oh
underwater.
yeah,
It's
yeah. You recommended this to
it's
me.
so good.
So I
Yeah, it's
meant
so
to look up the
good.
audiobook and I forgot.
But he had a great podcast on Ezra Klein talking about New York, about it being this amazing sort of achievement of civilization, that an amazing sort of testament to collaborate, a testament to collaboration, that all these people can get together in one place and agree to do this thing day after day, and it truly is amazing. All these people in a pretty small space doing the, working together, basically.
That's true. You think about uh, humanity as being, basically hostile a lot of the time. I mean, if you read about humanity, it leaves that impression a lot of the times from the news, history, etc. But yeah, riding the subway, and it's just like all of these people pressed, depending on the hour, in extremely uncomfortable proximity where everybody's depending on the other person to just be calm and be nice. And day after day after day, it's everybody does it, and you're just like, I'm standing here kind of hating everyone around me just because they exist and they're in my way, or at least if you're me, that's what you're thinking. But you also have to think, man, this is really like a gentle race where like it's incredibly unusual that like there's any kind of friction or a fight on the subway. It happens, but it's rare. Um,
Well, yeah, also
people,
what it takes to get everybody together like this. Somebody's got to run the subway, somebody had to build the subway, somebody has to like make the Metro card so you can put them in the system. Like the whole system itself, somebody has to bring the food in, somebody has to truck the garbage out, like every all the stuff that makes it possible for you to live in this city is a collaborative effort.
yes, and
And the
you,
artists as well for keeping it, to keep things interesting and to keep not just that. It's more. I think you hinted at it earlier that the role that artists keep the world. What did you say? From turning to poop? Yeah, I think
there you
it's,
go.
but it is actually.
Professional writer here, people.
It's true though. It keeps. I think artists really do. We're the front lines against things from becoming essentially a Brave New World situation.
Yeah, maybe, or if that's not the case, it's at least convenient. If you're going to make art anyway, you might as well find a way to make it a moderately heroic act.
Yeah, great. Well, finally, do you have any I don't want to monopolize all your time here, but do you have any advice for artists, writers, or anybody who would like to live a creative and fulfilling life?
I would say my main piece of advice for artists or anyone who can even, it's almost worth the inconvenience of becoming an artist if you're at all on the borderline. Uh, to just to have the opportunity to go to residencies. That would be my advice. If you're like an artist who hasn't done residency, hasn't like thought that they could get into a residency or whatever, just like I would say, just apply to like ones that have comparatively low barrier to entry, or if you're a big fat hotshot, just go anyway and go to a fancy one or whatever. I think that is like your one opportunity to live life as it should be, um, as a grown-up person in America. and you should take advantage of it. If there's a lot that is very dispiriting about being an artist, you at least have that one like magical loophole where you can go to a kind of place where everybody in the morning, goes off to work, but not to go like pretend to care about like the rebranding of GM or whatever for like 8 hours, but to go do the thing that they want to do more than anything else that's like most important to them in the world for 8 hours. And then like instead of going home to your lonely cell or to your like, the domestic routine, you're meeting people in a way that you would never otherwise meet them, and where they can have a profound impact on your life in the way that like you couldn't possibly or that's very hard to get as a grown up otherwise. Like I was describing how I met you and like the if I had just met you at like a party, like from a mutual friend or whatever, like even if I talked to you for like an hour and it was obvious that like we should be friends and that we would be friends, like we would not be friends. Like we could, because I would, even if I got your number, I would call you like a week or two later, like, hey, do you want to get a drink? And you'd be like, oh, I'm busy. And you'd be, and then like, you'd be busy. And then like 2 weeks later, I'd call you again and you'd be like, I was about to start a painting. Do I really want to go spend 45 minutes on the subway to like meet this guy who I like talked to at a party 4 weeks ago? And like, and you wouldn't do it. And then like if I called you again, I'd be a stalker. And so like anyway, like even so at a residency, you're just like with people by default. And the people who you would be friends with, you become friends with, just the same way as like going to school or summer camp. Um, and that's so hard to find in adult life. Um, Sorry to make this all about like me being a lonely person, but all this writing about loneliness and so on. But it's true, and it's a great. I mean, and obviously, it's also just worthwhile to be extracted from your routine and in a place where you can maybe just by default have different thoughts and different feelings. But I would say my advice for artists is go to residencies.
That's solid advice. That's good advice. I second that. Tell us about Cloud Intern, when it's coming out. I know you said it before, but tell us that where people can find it.
Okay, it's being published on May 27th. You may not like what's inside of it, but you will like what's on the outside because the art is kindly provided by Dan, our host here, and it's extremely beautiful. Like everyone who's seen the advanced copy has commented on the cover, so it's at least a lovely object that you can have in the house. And if by some chance you have time to open it up and read part of it, that would be great. Yeah, it's coming out on May 27th. Like you can get it wherever you like to get books, um, like, bookshop.org, Barnes and Noble. Apparently you can even get it from Walmart.com, and so on. But, Amazon, if you do that. And an audiobook will be available too, but that's still in the works.
So is somebody reading it?
Um,
Will you read it?
no, it won't be me. It'll be an actor, probably.
Cool. Well, thank you for the kind words about the paint. I was delighted to have a painting, one of my paintings featured on the cover, and I greatly enjoyed the book. So I look forward to reading the next one, and all forthcoming bubbles and so forth.
All right. Well, thank you for
Thank
letting me talk about myself
course,
for
yeah,
like an
thanks.
extended period
It
of time
was it
without
was
having to pay for it. It's great.
it was great.